Hi there, Rene Rubacava with OdoNet here, and today I want to talk a little bit about using the ArcGIS API 4.0 with a Redux architecture to build your applications. So if you're not familiar with Redux, you can look up reduxjs.org and you can check it out. And it's actually a library that you can use to build out your applications, and it's real popular to get used with React, and it's got some React bindings in here. But Redux is kind of neat. It's got this whole concept of actions, reducers in the store, and it's very much heavily influenced by the Flux architecture, which I'm a big fan of. And I've gotten to really enjoy using Redux to do quite a few things. So I've done regular Redux to build out some sample React applications, but I wanted to see if I could do something similar using the new ArcGIS API 4.0. So you can do some pretty cool stuff in here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at a Dojo config that we're going to set everything up for. So we're just going to have a Dojo config set to point to React on the Facebook CDN as well as React DOM. And that's all we're going to do. I have a simple little gulp file in here that's set up to build out my application for me. It's going to compile my JSX, my JavaScript, and everything else, all the really cool stuff. And I have a very simple little HTML page in here that I'm just going to point to the 4.0 CDN as well as my little Dojo config happening in here. And the first thing we're going to look at is going to be actions. So actions inside of the Redux application are basically, they do just that. They handle um, what kind of action is going to happen in your application. So the communication going on between the components, which are the views, as well as the stores. So everything in Redux you have to understand is basically about managing state. So the state of your store is going to dictate what happens on your view. And these actions are going to be what's going to update the stores themselves. So this is pretty simple. I just have a little action in here, one for loading the web map and one for when the view is ready. And you can see I'm calling some constants in here, and this is real simple. Just some basic strings that are in here. That's all it is. A kind of enum type stuff going on here. That's not a really big deal. A little bit of the cool stuff though is going on with the stores. So I've got this base store in here. Initially this was called underscore base, but I think the GitHub pages doesn't really like underscore file names because it wasn't working for me until I changed it. So what we're doing here is we're going to be using Dojo topic, and we're going to be using the accessor from the 4.0 of the JavaScript API. And I'm not going to get too much into detail with accessor. Some of these things may change in the life cycle of 4x, but right now I'm just going to create a subclass for the accessor. It's got a couple properties. It's going to have a signals array. It's going to have a state that's just going to be an object, and I'm going to have my state undefined to start with, and have a signals array. And I have a dispatch method. So this dispatch method is going to do is going to take my action. It's going to get the type. If you don't provide a type, throw an error. And then I'm going to create a payload object, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy in anything that was not the type onto that payload object, and then I'm going to publish it. So I'm going to publish the type, which something like the view ready or load the web map, and then any data that's going to go with that publish. And if you're interested in looking at how this publish works, you can just look up the Dojo documentation, look up Dojo topic, and it's got a whole publish and subscribe in there. And then I'm gonna have a listen. So what this listen is going to do is it's going to take a callback method, and what we're going to do is we're going to watch for the state uh, property of this store to change. So when that state changes, we're going to use call the callback method that we're passed. And then we're going to go and save this too because we want people to be able to unsubscribe from this store as well to clean things up. So we're just going to go ahead and create an array, use the callback as the ID here, and put the signal in there. And then we're going to return a function unsubscribe method that'll let them remove the signal themselves. There's also an unlisten method that will do pretty much the same thing. And then we're going to go ahead and have this get state method here. Now, this is a Redux thing. Get state's actually part of the Redux API. And if we look at the Redux docs in here, and if you go to store, store has a couple of predefined methods on here. So we have a get state method here. However, that's kind of a Redux thing. However, with the way that we've got this set up here, we could probably just have them access this dot state and not have get state in here. I debated on whether or not to keep this. I just kept it in here for now because it is a Redux kind of thing. But you can really just reference this dot state and not have to go to get state to get it. And that's part of the beauty of working with accessors. You don't have to have those custom get and set methods. Okay, so I've got this little base store in here, and then what I'm going to do is I have an application store that is going to extend that base store, and I'm just going to go ahead and have an initial state in here. My initial state is going to have a web map and a web map ID, and then I'm going to use again, I'm use Dojo topic, but I'm going to use subscribe method to subscribe to the load map string, and when the load map happens, I'm going to go ahead and call this init here. And this init method here is going to take the data and it's going to update the state from application store. And the way it's going to do that is via these reducers. And reducers are kind of cool concept inside of Redux, which is where it gets its name from. Reducer Redux, of course. Uh, Simple, right? So then what I'm doing here is I return new app store. And basically this is how you would just do a singleton um, inside your applications because this module is already going to get cached. And it's not going to call a new app store every time you're going to reference it. So we'll just return that there. Let's go ahead and I have the same thing here for this info. Um, I'll just go over this quickly here. Again, I'm using subscribe. I got my base store, my view ready string. I have a reducer here. I have an initial state for interacting, scale, and zoom. I have a store that's going to have the initial state. I subscribe to the view ready string, and when that happens, again, I have a method called init where I'm going to go ahead and update the state of the store based on what's coming in. And I know for this init method here that the view ready is going to return a view, but I'm just going to rename that to data and pass it over as a data property on my reducer method here with the action is what this is going to be that I'm passing to the reducer. So let's go and look at those reducers and see what they look like. So we'll look at the app one first. So, okay, so the reducers here, these don't have to be done this way. I think there's probably a couple ways that you might be able to tweak these to have them work a little better. But basically here is again, I have my initial state in here. I'm going to be loading a web map. And I'm going to have a little method here. It's just going to create my web map for me based on the web map ID that's being sent in. I have this little option, make options method here. It's just going to create my web map object here. You don't have to worry too much about that. But down here, we've got this default function reducer here. So we're going to pass in this. This is going to take a state, and we're going to make the default property the initial state, which is up here, which is undefined web map and undefined web map ID. So that's our initial state and then the action. And this is the action that we passed in before. It's going to have a type property on it and then most likely a data property on it. And then we're going to return back this object here, which is going to represent the new state. So this is going to be the updated state coming back out of our reducer. And this web map has a method it's going to call web map. We're passing a state.webmap, and that's going to be up here. So it's by default state's undefined. And then the action has type and data on it. And then based on whatever the type is, this time it's only a load map, we're going to go ahead and create the web map here or just return back the existing web map if we already have it. The same goes for web map ID. So web map ID by default is undefined. If it's a load map is the type, then we're going to go ahead and pass back that web map ID. Or if we already have a web map ID, just pass back the default web map ID that we already have in our state. And this is kind of how the way you do it. I've tried out a few other different ways to do it, and I kind of like some of the other ones using object.assign or even ram does merge all to get this done. But again, this is basically what Redux is doing under the hood. They have helper methods that set all this stuff up for you, but this is essentially what they are doing. And we have the same thing for the info here. So again, we're just going to go ahead and we have our properties interacting, scale, and zoom. We're calling methods. They're going to be updating each of these. And part of the benefit of this, instead of using like a single reducer method that's going to do an object.assign or a random merge all, is that each of these functions in here is responsible for only updating its part of the state and not the entire state. So that's kind of neat. It's kind of a nice separation of concern when you're building out your little reducers here. So again, I'm a really big fan of that and a fan of the way that these reducers are set up to do things. It's kind of a really clean way of writing out your code. It's a little bit more verbose maybe than some people might like, but it works out pretty nice. And then we have our main JSX over here. And here again, we have some couple of React components, a webmap view and the info. And we're just going to display those, pass a webmap ID. Let's look at what the components themselves look like. So let's look at the webmap. So the webmap here has webmap ID is going to be a prop type in here. These are the properties that are allowed to come in. And on component did mount, we get our app store, and we're going to listen uh, for the app store changes to happen. Remember, so that's anytime the state changes is when this callback will get called. So we have a method called map loaded on here, and as soon as the component gets mounted, we're going to dispatch a request to load the web map based on the web map ID that was given to this particular component. So and then when the component's unmounted, we're going to remove the listener on the store for the method for a component. That way it cleans everything up. So when the map's loaded, we're going to get the web map from the state. All right, again, I'm using this get state method here just to stick with Redux convention, but you can really just do store.state if you wanted to, it'd be fine. And then we're going to create a new scene view and append it to our component right here. And then we're going to watch for these properties to change. We're going to watch for interacting, scale, and zoom. And whenever any of them changes, we're going to go ahead and dispatch uh, an update for view ready, passing in the view. And it's going to, when you pass a view, it's also going to pass along these properties as well. And I could have just passed on an object to do this as well. I could have done this like this. Just grab this here. I really could have just done that, and that would also work as well. Again, this is all ES6. This works just fine. But for just to be simple, I'll just pass the entire view along, and I'll let the reducer itself go ahead and pull those values out of the view that I'm sending. Okay, and then the info here. So the info here is going to go and listen for its store, which again has those interacting scale and zoom as part of its initial state is also on the store. We're going to wait for those to change. Whenever they change, we're going to go ahead and update the state for this component, all right? And again, we have the store listen here, store unlisten, and that's what's going to get updated. So let's look and see what that's actually going to look like in the end. So here's what the actual application looks like when it's all done. All right, so we got this little info um, div up at the top here. It just tells us whether we're interacting with the map or not, what the current scale is, and what the zoom is. As you can see, as I start panning around, the scale changes, the zoom changes, and interacting is true. I stop moving, interacting is false. Right, so don't mind the odd kind of zoom and scale numbers in here. We're working in a 3D environment, so um, they're just calculated numbers based off of where the camera is positioned at. And what's kind of neat with this is that I can actually just watch for the camera as well, and I can have all the camera properties displayed up here, and you can get some nice little debugging information out of there if you wanted to. And it's just a neat little way to play with the scene view and just kind of show how Redux itself could be used inside a ArcGIS JS API 4.0 application. So that's basically it. You can again find the sample, this README here if you go to the GitHub page here, and I can put it up over here. So here it is up on GitHub, EzraJS 4-Redux. Go ahead and play around with it, see if you like it. This is now again, may not be a 100% Redux fully application. You might do things a little differently. And I think there's an opportunity here by using the accessor for the store, as well as some other 4.0 things, maybe a collection in here, that I could do some other more interesting things with the Redux type architecture about the application. But again, I thought this was really neat, and it's a really cool way of being able to build out your app to have this entire idea of data up, uh, actions up, data down workflow kind of going for the components. And that's the whole idea is when you're working with Redux and these kind of Flux and everything like that, is the idea is that the components themselves don't update the don't update state on their own. They actually initiate some sort of action into the application, and that action is going to do something that will maybe be asynchronous or could just be some sort of a calculation. And via whichever you did with those actions, that's going to update the state. And when the state gets updated, then the views will update based on based on those states being updated in the store. So you don't directly update the state. And that's the whole point. And it just keeps things clean and it makes it a little easier for you to be able to scale your applications when you start adding a lot more components in there or you have a more complicated store. So check that out and let me know what you think. Thank you.